Hi, everyone out there in the world of YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, stopping by and checking out my channel. My name is Jacqueline Anderson, and today I have a distinguished guest. He is a certified public accountant, Mr. Christopher Johnson. But before we get into his interview, I must acknowledge my niece and my nephew, Trinity, and my nephew, Robert III, affectionately known to me as Bobby Earl. You know, although they're youngsters, they are on my channel sometimes checking it out, and they were telling me, Jackie, you know what, you got to get your views up and increase your number of subscribers. So they were giving me some advice, telling me I need to tell people at the beginning of the video to like, share, subscribe, maybe leave a comment. So here it goes, everybody.
Yeah. That's an important thing. Yeah.
Right. So that's cool to me. They're youngsters. So let me say this. If you found the channel or came across it, consider subscribing. If you already are a subscriber, thank you for supporting the channel. And share, like, give it a thumbs up, because, of course, we're talking about accounting, but there's always an underlying message or some inspirational that anybody can relate to. And also consider leaving a comment. But back to my distinguished guest. As I said, he's a certified public accountant, CPA, Mr. Christopher Johnson. And I came across his channel and thought he would be a great person to interview, because with some of my past guests, I've asked, how can we increase the number of Black CPAs? Some of the common answers have been we need to step from behind the scenes and be more visible, and, for lack of a better word, make it more glamorous and appealing to youngsters. And I think this guy fits a bill. Not only is he not shy, but he's also carved a niche in a different area of accounting, which I always say is vast. It can lead you in so many directions. Not only is it lucrative, but it can be rewarding and fulfilling. It gives you so many options. So I want to give him an opportunity to tell more about his channel and where to find him on YouTube. So, Mr. Johnson.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that. Thank you for the recognition. I appreciate that very much. My name is Christopher Johnson. I am a certified public accountant and certified information security professional. So I hold a few other certifications that are specific to IT related topics versus just being your traditional CPA. I work in IT, although I am a CPA, and I'm sure we'll get into that some. And I have a channel just like Jacqueline. My channel is called CPA Diversity. You can find us on YouTube. And we are doing what we can to bring more awareness to the benefits of the accounting profession and the receipt of the CPA designation. It has been something that's been very valuable to my life, and I wanted to do what I could do to bring more information, bring more knowledge, bring more awareness to the profession and how it can be beneficial to anyone who chooses to go down the same path. And that's what the channel is about. It's called CPA Diversity. So make sure you like, make sure you follow, make sure you subscribe, make sure, you know, all of that, right? Because we want as many people to understand more and change their lives. And it's not for everyone what we're talking about and what we're proposing to people, but for those who it is for, I want to be someone who can encourage them to go and get past the all the challenges and all the obstacles that may be in the way. And that's what my channel is about, CPA Diversity. So there it is.
All right. So you know where to find him, CPA Diversity. So I am excited about this interview and can't wait to learn more about how he's using his credentials and working in the accounting field, along with IT and data integrity and security and risk management, which is a different aspect of accounting. So this should be very interesting. So we'll get started. All right. So, of course, I've already introduced him as Mr. Christopher Johnson, but do you go by Chris, or you professionally, are you Mr. Christopher Johnson?
Christopher, it's all good. It's all good.
Gotcha. Okay.
Use whatever you feel.
Gotcha. Okay. So what year, what age were you when you were initially licensed?
That is a story in itself. But
let's go. Let's get backstory. Here it is.
I'll be honest. What was I when I got licensed? I was 32 last year. I actually got licensed last year. Okay. But I had passed the CPA exam a long time ago. It's interesting. So not to get into the whole background yet, but what happened was I passed the exam, and then as soon as I passed the exam, I had got basically scooped up and grabbed and put into these firms, and life changed for me. It was a completely different lifestyle than I had when I grew up, and I was very close to getting all the qualifications for being a CPA, but because my career and life happened, I became a father, husband, all this stuff. I didn't do the things that I needed to do right away to get the license. So I had kind of put it on the back burner. And on top of that, like I said, I really used more of my IT certifications for my career. So I had those. I had those already in place and working. The CPA was kind of something that was on the background. But like year before last, I had said, you know what? No, I need to go make sure I get my actual certification, my actual license. So I went and did the last few things I needed to do to get it, and then became actually certified as a public accountant. So it wasn't actually long ago that I became certified, but I had passed the exam a long time ago.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, we definitely will circle back to that before after we get a little bit more of your background and see how did that happen. Because most people, that is the initial goal, especially if you've already passed the exam.
Yeah,
So
I have
you
a
know
very
this guy
interesting
is really
way
smart.
to exam. You know, I have a very interesting way of how I came here to be a CPA today.
Okay.
So that's what happened with that.
Gotcha. Okay, well, let's get some more of your background, and then we get into the professional life and how life just took over and led you to where you are now. So,
Yeah,
what?
I'll make it short.
Alrighty. So, what's your major? What was your major undergrad, and if you graduate degrees, what did you major in?
Why don't I do this? I'll give you some background first, just kind of where I came and how I became into
Okay.
college, and the major, and everything like that. So I'm from Miami, Florida. Um, as a kid, I think the big thing is, as an African American, and as a lot of people who come from diverse ethnicities, we don't always have a whole lot of like wealth circling amongst our family and things like that. So as a kid, I had, I did okay. We were middle class, but I always wanted to find a way for myself to earn money. So I got into some things and they didn't work out because I thought they would help me make money. And I graduated and went to school. So when I went to school, I was like, you know what? I'm going to make money, so I'm going to go into business. But when I got into business, I realized that I was a business management major, and there was a lot of people in that major. So I just thought to myself, well, I was at a small school. I went to Bethune-Cookman University. So
HBCU, we gotta acknowledge that.
if that was the biggest major in my HBCU, just imagine across the country, and I was going to be fighting for, competing for jobs when you graduate really across the globe, right? So I said, I got to get a little bit more specific, more refined, and accounting was the smallest group in my school. So I thought to myself, well, if that's the smallest group here, then it's probably one of the smaller groups everywhere, right? But why? Why is it so small? Of course, it's because when people hear accounting, they're like, numbers. I'm not doing it. I can't even deal. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it because I'm in college and I want it to be challenged. You go to college to challenge yourself. So I was like, I'm gonna switch my major to accounting. And when I got to school and I started learning accounting, I liked it. And my whole thing was, if I'm counting money, I'm making money. So that was my goal, I started learning, and into my journey of accounting, I had heard a story about how a guy also had an IT minor, and while he was in school, or not school, when he graduated school and went to go work, because he had an IT minor, he could put together these presentations and reports. And one of the teachers at my school was telling us how he had gotten like this promotion to a senior position because he knew IT on top of his accounting stuff. And when I heard that story that day, I went down to our registrar's office and I added a minor to my
Degree plan.
school for management information systems, which was an IT minor. And what happened was, it didn't really equate to a whole lot as far as the things that I know now for my profession, but it was a door to open to understanding IT, understanding computers and things like that. So that's how I ended up graduating from college with an accounting major, but a management information systems minor.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we'll jump into how did you end up start taking the exams, but yet didn't follow through to be licensed then?
So when I was in accounting, I had a teacher, and she said, well, I had a teacher. She was CPA, and she
Okay.
taught my I forget, it was one of my like advanced accounting courses. She was CPA. She was black woman CPA. She drove a Mercedes Benz. It was like an S550. She had a clothing business of her own, and I said, this lady's doing it. You know, like she's doing it. She's my teacher. And I was like, if she's a CPA, then I think I want to be a CPA. And she said one thing in class one day. She said, if you are a CPA, you are going to be involved in all the biggest discussions in the company. You know, if they're having big meetings about what's going to happen with the business, most likely the CPAs are going to be there. And I felt like that's who I wanted to be. I want to be in the discussion. So she really motivated me to continue with like, okay, now I'm an accounting major, but now I've got to get the CPA license, especially when I heard that there were so little African Americans that were becoming CPAs. So that was just something that added. It was like, hey, if I am now in this small group of people who are going to be competing for jobs, and then I become a CPA, I mean, getting a job and getting an income that I want should be, this is a pretty solid plan of mine. I'm trying to think about how I'm going to take care of myself after I leave college, right?
Right.
Uh, so what happened was I was in school and I had this teacher. I had one teacher before who was teaching us just regular accounting, going through the book, everything like that. Then I had a new teacher come in because the old teacher left. And he walked into my class one day, and he was just like, look, the only thing we're going to do right now is make sure all of you pass the CPA exam. We're not really doing much of anything. You're going to go to your room, you're going to study, and you're just going to pass the exam. That's all he was about, was passing the CPA exam. And it was perfect for me because at the time I had made my decision that I was going to pass. So it was literally like a class where we didn't do a whole lot of work. He just sent us, like, he would just like have classes and say, okay, just study your books so you can take the exam. But the studying process then, although I was very serious, I graduated and I just recommitted to starting from beginning. Cash is like the first subject you study, right? And I took a year off. I graduated, and then before going right into the workplace and trying to find a job, I took a whole year to study for the exam. And I know not everybody can do that. I was so gracious enough to have a sister who cared and was doing well for herself, so she let me live with her while I studied. And I just studied like every day. I woke up, I had my hours of study sessions, going through the books, and just trying to retain the information. That same teacher who told me that he wanted us to pass the CPA exam, he would say you have to study 8 hours a day and you got to know every answer to the problem if you're serious about passing. And I was like, oh wow, that seems like a big order.
Sounds
And
serious now, huh?
yeah, but it was good advice, because that if I didn't have that benchmark of, hey, you need to know every single answer to the problem, then I wouldn't have passed in the fashion that I did pass. Because some people in both of us do interviews, right? Some
Right.
people's stories to getting past the exam is like, wow, like they multiple tries, can't get past, missing by just a few points.
Yep.
And when you have that like, I need to know every problem, know every answer, it helps you get over that bar. So to try to keep it short, what I did is I studied, I registered, I took the exams, and what I did was I passed, and then I got offers from PwC, I got an offer from EY, and then I went and accepted the offers to EY. I accepted the offer to EY.
All
I
right.
started working. Then you get money, you start having fun, and things that are important, like getting the last few things that you need to get the CPA exam, just start kind of falling to the wayside. And it just became one of those things where it's like, I know I need to do it, but it just, life had gotten in the way, and I hadn't gotten to that last checkbox to get it until recently. And I was like, you know what, I need to get focused, get refocused, get back. And then I went and did the last few things I had to do to get my license, and I got licensed last year officially. That's
Well,
the story.
I will say it sounds like you already accomplished one of the major goals most accountants or CPAs have by working at a big four. So
Yeah.
can you talk somewhat about how you snagged a position? It sounds like you weren't even licensed at the time. You may have had the certifications past the 4-part exam, but you also had already kicked in the door at a big four.
Yeah, well, it's
Wow.
because the exam is that powerful,
It's
you know.
big. That's this top.
Yeah, it's that
It's
powerful. So
key.
when you go to a small school like mine, you know, and you go outside of the state, they don't know your school like that, especially these big companies and Big
Okay.
Four. And Big Four, they will look. They have their special schools that they look to when they do recruitment. So what happened was I was realizing that with just having my degree, I wasn't really getting many callbacks for positions, especially at Big Four, because they have their select schools. So it was already in my plan to study and pass the CPA exam. I just focused on that first,
Mhm.
and what happened was the second that I could put that I passed all four parts of the exam on my resume, I got callbacks because
Right.
that's not what you're seeing on anybody. You don't see that on most candidates' resume, and they like that because it shows that you're serious. It shows that you're going to be a CPA, and they want CPAs, especially CPAs of diverse backgrounds, right?
Right.
So I really attribute me landing my job at Ernst and Young with the passing of the CPA exam.
That's
I
so.
don't think it would have. I don't think it would have gotten Big Four experience without having done that part.
So at that point, you were trying to obtain the work experience component of being licensed, just so
Yeah,
people know you may passing the exam still opens doors, and you may get with a firm or even a big four where you can gain that work experience requirement in order to be licensed.
exactly. I had to just get the work experience at that point. Um, and it took a few, you know, it's like what I think like a couple years of work experience, and then you can go
Yeah,
past. I needed just
depending on your
another,
state. Yeah.
yeah, depending on your state, and I just needed a couple more credits in school, and then that was it, and then I could be licensed. So
Right.
I was waiting for that work experience, and then getting those last credits, and then certification.
Right. And for those who don't know, either working in a big four firm where everybody's an accountant, or that's particularly what the company does, or you have to report to someone who has the CPA credentials. So
Yep,
for him, Mr. Johnson, you just needed to obtain the work experience working probably in any area because you worked at EY. So that would
yeah,
satisfy
exactly.
that requirement.
Yep.
Gotcha. So you mentioned briefly you did have some life experiences. Is there anything you can share, things that could have derailed you, but you were able to overcome them and get back on track? Or did things stall for a while and you have to
Um,
regroup?
no, I didn't have anything that was too challenging in the sense of like life experience, other than I was young and I had gotten a new job, and the job was the focus, right?
Mhm.
They give you a lot of work, and you work long hours, and then that was it. Really, I didn't have like anything that was too crazy as far as holding me back, other than myself, and
Okay.
just making sure that I did what I needed to do to get what I needed to get with the license. So other than that, I've always been pretty focused as an individual, and I adapted. When I got to EY, what I realized was they put me on this special team. It was an IT team, so it wasn't like traditional accounting, right?
Okay.
And even though I had a minor in IT, it was really a minor. I did not know much about what we were doing when I started, and I had to refocus on learning how to be an expert in my specialized area, which was IT. So that's why I've got those IT certifications, because I had to find, well, what was like the equivalent of the CPA in the IT world. So I
Gotcha.
went and got my Certified Information Systems Auditor CISA license, and that was the license that I needed to do the job that they had put me at. So I started studying for that exam, and passed that exam. The requirements to become a CISA are not as stringent as the requirements for the CPA.
Of course not.
Yeah. So, but it was that license is as valuable as a CPA license for me, because of what position I was working in, and how it helped me to understand and connect the dots on my actual job, my day-to-day job. So
Okay. Gotcha. So with the various sections, the four-part exam, did you have to retake any sections, or were you disciplined enough to study and pass them the first time right out the gate?
yeah. So here's how that worked. I took FAR first because everybody talked about FAR being the hardest.
Right.
But to me, FAR is actually the easiest, and that's because of that rule. Yeah, that's because of that rule, right? The rule is know every problem on the exam. That's your bar. When you're studying for the exam, you want to know every problem. If you got a practice course, you don't take the exam until you know you're getting 90s on that practice course, the practice questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I passed FAR the first time because the way I see it is FAR is
wait a minute. Let me acknowledge. Let me clap. Let me applaud you. We know I've got. All right. It took me multiple times.
I passed FAR the first try, but that was because I knew the calculations and I knew them so well that I barely used my scratch paper. And if you know it that well, then there is really only one answer because it's mostly calculation and like you understand the theory and behind the question, you know the calculation, there's one answer. They'll try to give you answers that look the same, but they the answer you get on your paper or whatever it is you calculated, if it's there, then I know it that much that I can choose that answer and feel confident about it. And I want to caveat that I took the exam years ago, so some of the nuances about me taking the exam have escaped me, but I took FAR first, passed it. Then I said, okay, I'm taking audit, right? It's a downhill battle after FAR, right? So
the 18-month window has started, okay?
Yeah, 18-month window started. I took audit, passed it, first try. So I was like, why is everybody talking about this exam being that hard? Maybe I'm just that good. I don't know.
That's smart.
So let me tell you what happened. That same teacher, I kept a relationship with that same teacher who said pass the CPA exam. I kept a relationship with him after I passed. So I called him before I was going to take reg. Reg was my third one. And he said, are you ready for the exam? I said, yeah, don't worry, I got it. He's like, I don't know. So what he used to do is ask me random questions. He knew the exam that well. He could ask you a question and understand because he was a CPA, he was a lawyer, all kind of stuff. So he asked me a question on the phone and I was like, I don't really know. He was like, okay, we'll see. And I didn't think too much about it. But what happened was I think I let off the gas a little bit on my studying because I had passed FAR, I had passed audit. I was like, this is cruising. I'm going to finish this. And when I took reg, I failed it by like a few points. And I was like, okay, I got to take reg over. I thought I was just going to pass all four of them at the first try and be done. So what happened was I still had that window of opportunity before my first one expired, but it wasn't really even that. It was more, you have 3 months where 2 months on, 1 month off to take the exam. Right. So I was in this space. I was in this 3 month period where they were about to close a month, and I could study for BC, and then potentially take reg all within the same month before the month closed. I was trying to get the exam out the way as soon as possible so that way I could start working. So what I did was I said, okay, I'm going to put reg on the back burner. I'm going to study for BC. I'm going to take BC seriously and pass that. And that's what I did. I passed BC first try. And then after I took BC, I immediately started studying for reg again, but really getting serious, and then took reg right before that window cut off, and then I got both my BC and reg scores at the same time and passed all 4 parts. So then I was like, okay. So that's how I ended up. That was my sequence of taking the exam. And right after that, it was funny because
I'll just say one fail. That is huge. That's a big deal. So that's great. And had you just doubled down, you probably would have passed.
If you're serious, try to do your best to know everything before you walk in, and you give yourself the best chance to pass the exam doing it that way.